The champagne glass slipped from my trembling fingers, shattering against the marble floor of the bridal suite. But the sound that escaped my lips was far worse than breaking glass. It was the sound of a sister's heart breaking in real time. 3 hours before my sister Emma's dream wedding, I discovered a text message that would destroy everything we thought we knew about love, loyalty, and family. What happened next didn't just ruin her wedding day. It obliterated our family forever. My name is Sarah, and this is the story of how I became the villain in everyone else's fairy tale, even though I was just trying to save someone I loved from making the biggest mistake of their life. It started 6 months ago when Emma announced her engagement to Marcus. Picture-perfect Marcus with his lawyer salary, his perfectly styled hair, and his way of making everyone in the room feel like they were the most important person alive. Our parents practically glowed whenever he walked into the room. Finally, their eldest daughter had found someone worthy of the family name. But I saw something others didn't. Call it sister's intuition, or maybe I just paid closer attention to the details that mattered. The way his eyes would drift when Emma was talking. How he'd check his phone constantly during family dinners. The expensive cologne that didn't match his usual scent. Cologne I'd smelled before, but couldn't quite place. Emma was completely blinded by love. 28 years old, successful marketing executive, beautiful inside and out. But when it came to Marcus, she couldn't see past the romantic gestures and expensive dates. She'd been hurt before, badly, and Marcus represented everything she thought she wanted. Stability, status, and a man who seemed to adore her. The wedding planning consumed our entire family for months. Mom took early retirement to help coordinate vendors. Dad refinanced the house to pay for the venue Emma had dreamed about since she was 12. I watched them pour their hearts, souls, and life savings into creating the perfect day for their perfect daughter and her perfect fiancé. I tried to convince myself that my doubts were just wedding stress or maybe jealousy. Emma had always been the golden child, valedictorian, full scholarship, career success, and now a fairy tale romance. Maybe I was just bitter that my own love life resembled a series of unfortunate dating app encounters. But 3 weeks before the wedding, I saw Marcus leaving a hotel downtown at 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. He was supposed to be at work. I almost convinced myself it was a business meeting until I saw him kiss someone goodbye at the valet stand. It wasn't Emma. The woman was shorter, blonde where Emma was brunette, wearing a red dress that screamed expensive taste. They kissed like people who'd done it 1,000 times before, comfortable and familiar in a way that made my stomach turn. I spent the next 2 weeks in agony. Do I tell Emma and risk destroying her happiness over what might be an innocent explanation? Do I confront Marcus directly? Do I hire a private investigator like they do in movies? Every option felt impossible. The sleepless nights were torture. I'd lie awake imagining Emma's face if I told her. Imagining our parents' devastation if the wedding was called off after all their sacrifice. But I also imagined her 5 years from now, maybe with kids, discovering Marcus's betrayal and realizing that her own sister knew and said nothing. 2 days before the wedding, I made a decision that would haunt me forever. I hired a private investigator. Not some movie version with a trench coat and cigarettes, but a middle-aged woman named Janet who specialized in matrimonial cases and spoke about infidelity like she was discussing the weather. "Give me 48 hours, she said. "If there's something to find, I'll find it." Janet worked fast. Too fast. Within 24 hours, she had photos, credit card receipts, hotel records, and phone records that painted a picture I wasn't prepared to see. Marcus wasn't just cheating. He'd been living a double life for 8 months. The other woman was Rebecca, a pharmaceutical sales rep he'd met at a conference. She didn't know about Emma. She thought Marcus was single, traveling frequently for work, which explained his inconsistent availability. Janet had photos of them at restaurants, entering hotels, walking hand in hand through parks where Marcus had never taken Emma. But the worst part wasn't the affair itself. It was the timeline. Marcus had been with Rebecca longer than he'd been engaged to Emma. He'd proposed to my sister while actively building a relationship with someone else. The wedding was tomorrow. The rehearsal dinner was in 6 hours. 200 guests were arriving from 3 different states. The flowers were being delivered at dawn. My parents had already moved into the bridal suite at the venue to oversee final preparations. I sat in my car in the venue parking lot with Janet's evidence folder, feeling like I was holding a grenade with the pin already pulled. No matter what I did next, someone was going to get destroyed. The rehearsal dinner was a beautiful nightmare. Marcus gave a speech about finding his soulmate and being grateful for Emma's family accepting him as one of their own. Our father cried. Actual tears of joy. While talking about gaining the son he'd always wanted, Emma glowed like she was lit from within, radiating happiness that made everyone around her smile. I couldn't eat. I couldn't speak. I just sat there with a fake smile plastered on my face, the evidence folder burning like acid in my purse. After dinner, Emma cornered me in the ladies' room. "You've been weird all night," she said, touching up her lipstick in the mirror. "Wedding jitters are contagious, you know. I'm nervous too, but Marcus makes everything better. I can't believe I get to marry my best friend tomorrow." She was so happy, so completely radiantly happy. How do you destroy someone's entire world when they're looking at you like you hung the moon? "Emma," I started then stopped. "I just love you. You know that, right?" She hugged me and I smelled her perfume. The same one she'd worn since high school, familiar and comforting. "I love you too, little sister. Tomorrow's going to be perfect." I went home that night and didn't sleep at all. I paced my apartment until sunrise, the evidence folder sitting on my kitchen table like an unexploded bomb. I wrote and deleted a dozen text messages to Emma. I practiced conversations that all ended with someone crying. At 6 a.m. I made my decision. I was going to tell her before the ceremony privately, so she could make her own choice about what to do with the information. It was her life, her decision, but she deserved to make it with all the facts. I drove to the venue early, my hands shaking so badly I could barely grip the steering wheel. The morning was perfect. Clear skies, gentle breeze, the kind of day poets write about for weddings. Felt like the universe was mocking me. Emma was in the bridal suite with our mom and the bridesmaids, having her hair done. She looked like a princess in her silk robe, laughing at something the makeup artist had said. When she saw me in the doorway, her face lit up. "There's my maid of honor. Come here, I need moral support. This headpiece weighs about 40 pounds. I walked over on unsteady legs, clutching the folder behind my back. "Em, can I talk to you privately for a minute? After hair and makeup, okay? Linda's on a tight schedule, and we still need to get into the dress." "Oh my God, Sarah, I can't believe it's actually happening." But there wasn't going to be an after. The photographer wanted family shots before the ceremony. The bridesmaids needed to get dressed. The schedule was packed tighter than airline seating, and every minute that passed made it harder to find the right moment. At 10 a.m., Marcus arrived for the first look photos. I watched through the window as Emma walked toward him in her wedding dress, our grandmother's vintage lace, altered to fit her perfectly. She looked like something out of a fairy tale. Marcus's reaction should have been joy, tears, overwhelming love. Instead, I saw him check his phone over the photographer's shoulder while Emma was walking toward him. Even in this moment, her moment, he wasn't fully present. The photographer positioned them for romantic shots while I stood 20 feet away, still holding the evidence that could stop everything. Every photo felt like another nail in the coffin of truth I was building. "Emma looks beautiful," said a voice behind me. I turned to find Rebecca, the other woman, standing there in a blue dress, holding a wedding invitation. My blood turned to ice water. She was here, at the wedding, as a guest. "I'm Rebecca," she said, extending her hand. "I work with Marcus. He invited some colleagues from the pharmaceutical conference where we met. You must be Emma's sister. Marcus talks about you all the time." She didn't know. This woman genuinely didn't know she was the other woman. She thought she was attending her boyfriend's colleague's wedding. The audacity was breathtaking. How long have you known Marcus?" I managed to ask. "About 10 months now. We've been dating for 8 months, but he travels so much for work that we don't get to see each other as often as I'd like. He's been really busy with some big project lately. Probably planning something special for us too. The project was Emma. The project was this entire wedding, this entire life he was about to vow to commit to while maintaining a relationship with the woman standing next to me. I excused myself and ran to the bathroom, where I threw up everything I'd tried to eat that morning. This wasn't just infidelity. This was sociopathic behavior. Marcus wasn't just cheating. He was living parallel lives with surgical precision. When I came out, the ceremony was starting in 30 minutes. Guests were being seated. The string quartet was playing processional music. Emma was getting final touch-ups on her makeup, glowing with happiness while her fiancé's girlfriend sat in the third row, genuinely excited to witness what she thought was a colleague's wedding. I made a decision that would define the rest of my life. I couldn't let Emma marry someone who was capable of this level of deception. I couldn't let Rebecca sit there unknowingly celebrating the man who had been lying to her for 8 months. And I couldn't live with myself if I stayed silent. But I also couldn't destroy Emma in front of 200 people. I found Marcus adjusting his tie in the groom's room, looking like the picture of a nervous but happy groom. When he saw me, he smiled that charming smile that had fooled all of us. "Sarah, ready to give away your sister to the best man she'll ever find. We need to talk," I said, closing the door behind me. I placed the evidence folder on the table between us and opened it. Photos of him with Rebecca spilled out. Intimate dinners, hotel entrances, affectionate embraces. His face went white, then red, then calculating. "Where did you get these?" "It doesn't matter where. What matters is that your girlfriend is sitting in row 3, thinking she's attending a colleague's wedding, while you're about to marry my sister. You don't understand the situation," he said, straightening his shoulders like he was preparing for a business negotiation. "Rebecca and I. It's complicated. Complicated. You've been lying to 2 women for 8 months. You proposed to Emma while you were building a relationship with someone else. There's nothing complicated about being a sociopathic cheater. Don't be dramatic, Sarah. Lots of people have complicated relationships before settling down. Chose Emma. I'm here, aren't I?" The complete lack of remorse was staggering. He wasn't apologetic or ashamed. He was annoyed at being caught. He spoke about Emma like she was a business decision, a practical choice over the more exciting option. "Tell Emma now, or I will." Marcus laughed. Actually laughed. "With what proof?" "Some photos that could be explained dozens of ways. Emma trusts me completely. Her parents love me. Even if you showed her these photos, do you really think she'd call off her wedding based on your paranoid theories?" He was right about one thing. Emma wouldn't believe it. She was so invested in this perfect love story that she'd rationalize away any evidence that contradicted it. She'd choose to believe his explanations over her sister's concerns. But Rebecca would believe it. Rebecca, who was sitting out there in her blue dress, genuinely caring about a man who saw her as a convenient side dish to his main course. "You have 5 minutes to figure out how you're going to handle this," I told him. "Either you tell them both the truth, or I will. You'll destroy Emma's life over nothing. Is your jealousy really worth ruining her happiness?" That's when it hit me. He was never going to confess. He was going to marry Emma, string Rebecca along for as long as convenient, and then probably discard her when it became inconvenient. Emma would spend years married to someone fundamentally incapable of honesty, and Rebecca would waste more of her life on someone who saw her as disposable. The wedding march began playing. Emma would be lining up for her processional any minute. I walked out of the groom's room and straight to row 3, where Rebecca sat alone, smoothing her blue dress and smiling at the romantic decorations. "Rebecca, I need to show you something," I said quietly, sitting beside her. I opened the folder and showed her the photos. Her face went through the same progression as Marcus's. Confusion, recognition, horror, and then something like relief mixed with devastation. "This is Marcus," she whispered, pointing to a photo. "This is my boyfriend Marcus." "Who is he marrying?" "My sister." They've been engaged for 6 months. Rebecca stared at the photos, then at the altar where Marcus stood waiting, then back at the photos. He told me he was single. He said he traveled for work. That's why we couldn't see each other more often. Oh God, I bought him a birthday present last week. The processional began. Bridesmaids started walking down the aisle in their lavender dresses, smiling at guests and family. Any moment now, Emma would appear in the doorway in our grandmother's dress, ready to pledge her life to someone who had been lying to her since before he proposed. What do we do? Rebecca whispered. I looked down the aisle at Marcus, who had spotted us sitting together and talking. His face had gone completely pale. He knew his carefully constructed lies were crumbling in real time. We stop this, I said. But Emma appeared before I could move. She looked radiant, ethereal, like she was floating instead of walking. Our father beamed beside her, proudly escorting his eldest daughter toward what he believed was her happily ever after. The look of pure joy on Emma's face was heartbreaking. I couldn't destroy this moment in front of everyone. I couldn't traumatize her in front of 200 people and ruin what should be the most beautiful day of her life. But I also couldn't let her marry someone who was capable of this level of deception. As Emma reached the altar and our father lifted her veil to kiss her cheek, I made a decision that would haunt our family forever. I stood up. I'm sorry, I said loudly enough for everyone to hear. But I can't let this continue. The silence that followed was deafening. Emma stared at me with confusion and growing horror. Our parents looked mortified. Marcus looked like he was calculating escape routes. Emma, I need to tell you something before you say your vows. Something about Marcus that you need to know. Sarah, what are you doing? Emma's voice was barely a whisper, but in the absolute silence of the ceremony space, everyone heard it. I looked at Rebecca, who nodded encouragingly. I looked at Marcus, who was shaking his head almost imperceptibly, still hoping I wouldn't have the courage to go through with it. Marcus has been lying to you. He's been in a relationship with another woman for 8 months. Since before he proposed to you. Rebecca is here today because Marcus invited her and she had no idea about you. She thought she was attending her boyfriend's colleague's wedding. The gasps from the guests sounded like wind rushing through trees. Emma's face went completely white. Our mother made a sound like she'd been punched. Rebecca stood up beside me. It's true, she said, her voice shaking but clear. I've been dating Marcus for 8 months. I had no idea he was engaged to anyone. Emma looked from me to Rebecca to Marcus, who still hadn't said a word. Is this true? She asked him. Marcus could have denied it. He could have tried to spin some elaborate explanation. Instead, faced with 2 women and photographic evidence, he chose the coward's path. He ran. Not a dramatic movie-style run, but a quick, panicked exit through the side door of the ceremony space, leaving Emma standing at the altar in our grandmother's dress, holding a bouquet that suddenly seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds. Emma's knees buckled. Our father caught her before she hit the ground, and our mother rushed to her side. The guests sat in stunned silence, unsure whether to leave or stay or pretend this wasn't happening. Rebecca approached the altar slowly. I'm so sorry, she told Emma. I had no idea. If I had known, I never would have. I'm so sorry. Emma looked up at her. This woman who had unknowingly been sharing her fiancé, and said something that surprised everyone. It's not your fault. We were both lied to. The aftermath was brutal. The reception was cancelled, obviously, but 200 guests had traveled from multiple states. The vendors still needed to be paid. The flowers were already delivered. The cake sat untouched in the reception hall while our family tried to figure out how to dismantle a wedding in real time. But the real damage wasn't logistical. It was emotional. Emma didn't speak to me for 3 months. Our parents were devastated, not just about the money but about their faith in their own judgment. They had loved Marcus, trusted him, believed he was perfect for their daughter. You could have told me privately, Emma said when she finally called. Did you have to humiliate me in front of everyone we know? She was right. I could have found a way to tell her privately, even if it meant letting some guests witness a mysteriously cancelled ceremony. But I was terrified that if I gave Marcus any opportunity to explain or manipulate, Emma would choose to believe his lies over my evidence. The family divided into camps. Some relatives thought I was a hero for saving Emma from a terrible marriage. Others thought I was jealous and destructive, willing to ruin my sister's happiness over speculation and paranoia. Emma and Rebecca actually became friends, bonded by shared experience of Marcus's deception. They compared notes and realized the extent of his lies went far beyond simple infidelity. He had been living completely separate lives, using work travel as cover for maintaining two relationships simultaneously. 6 months later, Emma thanked me. She had started therapy, worked through the trauma of public humiliation, and come to understand that I had been trying to protect her, even if my methods were imperfect. I would have married him, she admitted. Even if you had told me privately, I probably would have convinced myself that the photos didn't mean what they seemed to mean. I was so invested in the fairy tale that I would have ignored red flags the size of billboards. Marcus never apologized to either of them. He moved to another state and, according to mutual friends, continued his pattern of elaborate deception with new victims. Some people are just fundamentally dishonest, incapable of the vulnerability that real intimacy requires. Emma is single now, but not bitter. She's in therapy, focusing on her career, learning to trust her instincts instead of ignoring them in favor of romantic fantasy. She says she's grateful to be free, even though the way she gained that freedom was traumatic. Rebecca moved back to her hometown and started dating someone who introduced her to his entire family within 2 weeks. I know what deception looks like now, she told us. I'll never ignore my gut feelings again. As for me, I learned that sometimes doing the right thing requires accepting that people will hate you for it. I lost relationships with extended family members who thought I was cruel and attention-seeking. But I gained something more important. The knowledge that when faced with an impossible choice, I chose truth over comfort, protection over popularity. Would I do it differently if I could go back? Maybe I would have found a more private way to reveal the truth. Maybe I would have confronted Emma earlier in the engagement, before so much money and emotion were invested. But I wouldn't change the fundamental decision to speak up. Emma deserved better than a lifetime of lies. And Rebecca deserved better than being someone's secret. The wedding that destroyed everything ultimately saved 2 women from wasting years of their lives on someone incapable of honesty. Sometimes destruction is just creation in disguise, clearing away the lies to make room for something real. 3 years later, our family is closer than ever. We learned that surviving crisis together can strengthen bonds rather than break them, as long as everyone chooses forgiveness over resentment. Emma is dating someone new. A divorced dad who introduced her to his children on their 3rd date because he has nothing to hide. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I had stayed silent. Would Emma have discovered the truth eventually? Would Marcus have ended things with Rebecca? Or would he have continued living his double life indefinitely? Would Emma have spent years in a marriage wondering why she felt so lonely despite having a husband? I'll never know because I made a different choice. I chose truth over peace, protection over popularity, love over comfort. It was messy and painful and public and horrible, but it was also necessary. The champagne glass that fell from my fingers that morning shattered into pieces that could never be put back together. But sometimes things need to break before they can be rebuilt into something stronger and more beautiful than they ever were before. If you found yourself in my position, holding evidence that could destroy someone you love but also save them from a lifetime of deception, what would you do? Would you choose temporary peace or difficult truth? Would you risk being the villain in someone else's story to protect them from a much worse ending? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please subscribe for more real stories about the complicated choices we face when love, loyalty, and truth collide. Sometimes the hardest decisions are the most important ones we'll ever make.